Good evening and welcome to the November 14th, 2017 meeting of the Guilderland Board of Education. Would you all please silence your cell phones and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item on the agenda this evening is the high school representatives report.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Shashank Shamshabad. I was recently elected as the student representative for the Board of Education. So I'm here tonight to give you guys a report on what's happening in the school right now. So recently we had the fall play, Almost Maine, and right now, for like the past couple of weeks, there's been auditions for the spring musical. And in athletics-wise, winter sports has begun and has been rolling good for a while. The student government elections have happened, and as well, I was recently elected. So quarter one also ended last Friday, which begins the start of the next quarter, quarter two. A coat drive was started, and we donate coats towards other charity to give towards people in need, and that worked out pretty well, I think. The student government actually has like a big role in the school, as it also helps with fundraising for different events with the school. It has a major cause for the school to help it. So recently, on the news, as it was reported on GHS Reporter, a self-defense class is going to be started at GHS called RAD, which is for women to help defend themselves when they're in a time of need. And traveling. The Model UN Club, which I was also a part of, traveled to Brown University last weekend for the annual Houston Conference, Brown University Simulation of United Nations. It went really well. 2 students from our school had also won an award. The Robotics Club is also having a meet really soon at RPI. And the SAD Club is doing an all blackout day to commemorate all the people who are drunk driving victims and who drunk drive, etc. That's all I have for today. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your patience.
Thank you very much. I've been told we have no one signed up for public comment. So the next item on our agenda is the appointment of the new board member, which the board just met in executive session to discuss. And this certainly was not an easy decision. There were lots of very qualified candidates, and we hope that each remains involved and considers running for election in the future. So we thank you for your interest, and we encourage you to stay involved and keep coming to meetings. That being said, a majority of the board has agreed upon Mr. Alan Simpson to fill the role. I have a resolution that I'll read, and then I'll ask for a motion to approve this. It is hereby resolved that the Board of Education of the Guilderland Central School District hereby appoints Alan Simpson to fill the vacancy on the board created by the resignation of Christopher McManus. Said appointment to be until the next regular school district election or as otherwise may be required by law. Said appointment shall commence immediately upon the appointed individual filing an oath of office with the district clerk. May I have a motion to approve the resolution? Tim, second. Teresa? Are there any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Seema, Teresa, Tim, myself, and Barbara. Any abstentions?
No.
All those opposed, please raise your hand. Judy, Gloria, Kathy. The motion passes 5-3.
I just wanted to make one comment, if I could. The reason that I'm voting no is that the seat was very recently up for election, and the voters spoke pretty clearly at that election, and Sean McGuire was within 20 votes of actually winning the seat. So that's why I'm voting no, because I think that this is not what we should do. We should not ignore the voters.
Thank you, Kathy. I agree. I also agree.
Okay, Mr. Simpson, if you would like to come up and join the board. Thank you very much for your interest. I do have an oath of office for you. So if you want to read that oath of office and then sign the bottom, and there's also another document behind there to sign and return it to the district clerk.
Okay.
That would be great.
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office of board member according to the best of my ability. Oh, thanks. I got mine.
Thank you, Alan. That
Let's
would
go
just
to
go
Linda.
right down to Linda.
I got it. Thanks. Okay.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the election of the vice president. Do we have any nominations? Barbara?
I'd like to nominate Seema.
Okay. Do we have a second? Teresa, second. Are there any other nominations? Okay. All those in favor of Seema filling the role of vice president, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that passes 9-0. Seema, thank you. We also have an oath of office for you, but I don't see it up here. It's exactly the same as Alan's, except for change board member to vice president of the Board of Education.
Should I do it next time, or
Should she read
you can just
the
read
text
it?
of Alan's and just insert instead of board member?
That's okay. Let's go ahead and read it?
Yeah.
Okay. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of board member according to the best of my ability.
Did you say board member or vice president?
Vice President, board member, according to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Seema. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the program report. Marie?
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and Lynnwood community who is here in Forest tonight. Tonight we have the wonderful opportunity to hear about the story of Lynnwood and the journey they have been on for the past several years to serve students well through the lens of instructional coaching. So I'm going to turn things over to Mrs. Rizzo, principal of the elementary school, and Mr. Sanders to enter his password. And we'll begin our presentation.
Good evening. My name is Angelica Stone, and this is my third year teaching at Lynnwood. During my time at Lynnwood, I have become more intentional in my instruction in a way that allows my students to love literacy as much as I do.
And hi, I'm Jackie Vandenberg. This is my 5th year teaching at Lynnwood. Instructional coaching has shaped me as a teacher in many ways, but most importantly, it has created a rich learning environment for both students and teachers. So here is our principal, Alicia Rizzo, to tell us the story of Lynnwood.
Good evening, everyone. Is this microphone working? I wish to begin by thanking the Board of Education for the opportunity to share the story of Lynnwood with you this evening. I must also take a moment to thank Dr. Wiles and the entire district office team, including Damien, who's sick, for their unwavering support and dedication to our work. Now, before we begin to tell you the story of Lynnwood, I need to acknowledge the Lynnwood staff, both past and present, for their courage, their determination, and their perseverance. This story is being told because not only are they a group of the most elite professionals that I have ever worked with, but they have grit, every single one of them. And although the focus of the presentation tonight is about the role of instructional coaching for reading and math, I want to be 100% clear. Learning does not happen in schools that are not joyful. Learning does not happen when children cannot play, laugh, sing, create, paint, exercise, and we had to work hard to strike a balance between beloved activities and time for explicit instruction in reading and math. So I must acknowledge that without our wonderful special area teachers, our support staff, and our teaching assistants, we could never accomplish our goals. The contributions of these people cannot be underestimated this evening. Now, it might be a challenge to try and tell this story in less than 30 minutes because it's a 7-year story, but let me take you back in time to where our story begins. In 2012, this is where Lynnwood was in ELA. You will see Lynnwood here in the blue, and the rest of the district is in red. This data represents the percentage of all students who met proficiency in ELA that year. This is where Lynnwood was in math. Again, Lynnwood is in blue, and the rest of the district was in red. This data represented the percentage of all students who met proficiency in math. And due to the student performance in these areas, Lynnwood was in CINE status, and we were on the list. CINE status stood for a school in need of improvement as designated by the State Education Department. So we want to share a clip with you that might visualize how we were struggling at this time.
That's not good.
Oh, I don't need this. I'm already late.
Somebody will come. Anybody out there?
Do you have a phone?
No. Sorry. Somebody! Hello? There are 2 people stuck on an escalator and we need help. Now, would somebody please do something?
Help!
I don't believe this. You gotta be kidding me.
I'm gonna cry.
Well, there's not enough left to do, is it?
So that was us. Now, this clip is not about getting stuck. This clip really is about having a limited repertoire of strategies for solving a problem, getting off the escalator, if you will. It is about trying to solve problems when you know only limited ways to do so. And when those ways don't work, what do you do to get it done? This clip is a metaphor for why Lynnwood worked to expand its repertoire of strategies, to solve student problems. We knew we needed to do something more in order to get off that escalator and get it moving again. So as a reminder, here is where we were in ELA. Again, Lynnwood was blue, and red is the rest of the district. And this is what happened with our students when we began to invest in the expertise of teachers and not materials. And in math, here is where we were. Again, Lynnwood is blue. And this is what happened with our students when we relied on teacher expertise and challenged conventional wisdom by finding new and innovative ways to get that escalator moving. And that's us in math. However, we want you to know that this story is not about data or test scores. This is what this story is really about. So now that you know the why of this story, here's the how. Along the way, there were a lot of obstacles that could have gotten in the way. APPR, rigorous testing, Common Core, increase in poverty rate, gap elimination. In addition to all of these external obstacles, we also faced our own personal challenges. I myself was battling a serious illness while others in the building were up against their own personal challenges that needed to be overcome, all while we were trying to climb this mountain. But again, it was because of this that we would not let those obstacles stop us. Now, to overcome these obstacles, the easy solution may have appeared to be things like engage New York modules, focus on test prep, invest in some type of scripted program. And these probably would have resulted in short-term gains. But we were committed to the long-term success of our students. So we spent time examining our beliefs and our values. We did our homework and we researched best practice. And we concluded that we must invest in our teachers. So instead of staying on that escalator and waiting for someone to fix it, we took action. And in 2011, as a new principal, I asked the brand new superintendent to support this unconventional idea of literacy coaches. The district office team agreed to the idea of literacy coaches, and we began our work. We took what we learned from our work in literacy and we applied it to math. We began to use our math specialist as an instructional coach as well. And shortly after, we got off the list. And we continued to find ways to try and get the escalator moving again by fostering an authentic learning community that would become an integral part of the culture of our school. So let's flash back to where it all began. I would like to introduce our literacy coaches, Mrs. Nell Ball and Mrs. Katie Barker, along with our language arts coordinator, Mrs. Kathy State, and third grade teacher, Joan Craig.
Thank you, Alicia. So our journey begins in the fall of 2010 when a group of teachers and myself attended the Literacy for All conference. Here we were introduced to the Literacy Collaborative model created by two known reading experts in the education field, Fontes and Pinnell. After returning, I shared with Alicia the excitement for the Literacy Collaborative model. Then, as a building, we made the decision to learn more about Literacy Collaborative.
So that spring, we sent two groups of teachers to Literacy Collaborative team training at Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Both teams returned optimistic about the benefits of Literacy Collaborative, professional development, and coaching model. We eagerly shared what we learned at Lesley with the staff, and they overwhelmingly voted to take on this model. With this decision, though, our teachers really showed a commitment and a desire to learn and reinforce their literacy teaching practices and improve student learning. We rolled up our sleeves and we began this important work.
And then Nell and I made a commitment to become literacy coaches. With the support of our administrators, our Lynnwood colleagues, and our families, we spent the next 18 months training to become literacy coaches with the Center for Reading Recovery and Literacy Collaborative at Lesley University. It was rigorous graduate work.
So if you look at the slide, you'll see the type of work that we engaged in. We reflected on professional readings and research. We engaged in case studies. Katie and I videoed ourselves to analyze and reflect on our teaching, but also on our coaching and our professional development. And then with feedback from the university liaisons at Lesley and training colleagues, we implemented our new learnings about the literacy framework into our own classrooms.
Since 2012, we have provided our teachers with over 140 hours of sustained professional development in the area of literacy. And our teachers did a lot of reading. The work we are doing is truly collaborative. It involves all of our teachers of literacy: classroom, reading, special education, ENL, speech and language, and our school librarian. So what does this look like? If you were a first-year teacher at Lynnwood, you would receive 40 hours of professional development around literacy. Our professional development follows a progression which builds upon a strong foundation of the reading and writing process. From there, we focus on a specific area of literacy, like guided reading or word study, interactive writing, and other areas of the literacy framework. Our professional development often includes a discussion of professional readings, observing real-life teaching, analyzing students' reading behaviors, looking closely at assessments, reflecting on our own teaching by watching videos of ourselves. The advantage of this model is that the work in our sessions can be responsive to the needs of the students at Lynnwood.
So after the teachers receive professional development on a topic, say like guided reading, they go back to their classrooms and they try it. And this is very different from the stand and deliver model of professional development, where teachers can often feel like, I heard a great idea, but what now? Here is where the coaching comes in. Instead of teachers just having a professional development on a topic, we provide ongoing support. Teachers try out the new learning, and we provide support and feedback. All of this work has helped us really create a professional learning community at Lynnwood. Our teachers feel open to having a coach in and provide support. And you know, it's not always easy to have another extra set of eyes in your classroom watching what you do and giving you feedback and talking to you about it. But after 6 years, our teachers are now not only inviting Katie and I into their classrooms, but other colleagues to come in and observe their teaching. And it's really fostered a reflective and open environment where teachers, where reflection and feedback are the norm at Lynnwood.
This work ties closely around the district's initiative of reading recovery. In the last professional development that I held, we observed a reading recovery teacher, Kathy State, behind the glass. While she taught her student, I was able to highlight specific teaching moves. Here's Kathy State to talk more about that.
So the bottom photo on the slide shows the lesson that Katie is referring to. The boy behind the glass with me is a student in first grade teacher Caroline McGuire's class, and she's sitting on this side of the glass next to Katie, along with a couple other teachers in that cohort. By walking her through the lesson, Katie is building a bridge between Caroline's work and my work, so that we are talking the same language of early literacy. Students have a much better chance of succeeding if the classroom teachers and the reading teachers and support teachers are all using the same approach and the same language to support them. Literacy Collaborative provides the framework for that to happen. So Katie mentioned reading recovery. I'm sure it's not the first time you've heard the name. Our district has adopted reading recovery 6 years ago and has been supporting and expanding it in all 5 of our elementary buildings. Reading recovery teachers receive intense training to provide individualized reading and writing instruction to our lowest achieving students. Literacy Collaborative has its origins in the Reading Recovery Program. It elaborates on the same theories to design a school-wide approach to professional development and reading and writing instruction in the classroom. Both programs are based on the belief that teachers need more than training. They need the opportunity to analyze and reflect, both with more expert others and with their peers. The top photo shows a good example of peer support in reading recovery. Ginny, our reading recovery teacher leader, asked me to watch her teach a lesson with a student whose recent behaviors had been puzzling her. Now, Ginny is our more expert other, but she reached out to me because, as Nell mentioned before, that extra set of eyes and that extra set of ears really accomplishes a lot. After I observed Ginny's lesson, we looked at my notes and we did some flexible problem solving to work around the roadblock. The week before, Ginny had done the same thing for me. And over the course of the year, reading recovery teachers often will visit each other in different buildings, in the same building, and provide that same type of support. The coaching model makes this kind of peer support available, not just to reading recovery, but to all teachers. So coaching is a win-win. It lifts the level of intervention and individual instruction, and it lifts the level of classroom instruction. So here now is an example of how coaching can support classroom instruction.
Find the right page here. So I'd like to give you just a snapshot of what a coaching session might look like. Now I need you to understand that this is a snippet. This is 1 minute out of a 13-minute coaching conversation that myself and Joan Craig, who is a third grade teacher in our building, had after I had observed her teaching. Joan actually had agreed to be filmed so we could use the video of her teaching for an upcoming professional development session on guided reading. And in this follow-up conversation, Joan and I were able to view the video of her lessons. The focus was on using concise teacher language to prompt students to do more talking about a text. So play the video. So what did you notice that you did with your instruction and your language in the second?
I kind of planted a seed as far as something they could think about with Kim changing, but I feel like I did allow them to do more talking. I had said, tell me more. And then Gavin did a beautiful job when I said, can you add something to that? And without prompting, so I did a lot less talking. They did more talking in the second
You
one.
did a lot less talking, but you, like you said, you gave them something to think about, and it sounded to me like you wanted to see if they understood the change that was happening within the character.
Right.
And by you just giving that prompt, Owen said he was happy. And when you did it in your first lesson, when Tyler said surprised, you said, okay, and then you said a little bit what you thought, and then you continued the conversation. This time when Owen said happy, you said tell me more, and Owen was able to tell you more.
Yes.
And then you, rather than building or saying a different question, all you said was can you add on to that, and Gavin was really able to share all of his thinking that
he gave great details.
He gave in good details and in his understanding of how the character had changed.
As Nell mentioned, my name is Joan Craig, and I have taught over 18 years. I've taught both at Westmere and Lynnwood Elementary. And I've had the opportunity to work with both Katie Barker as a second grade teacher and Nell Ball as a coach as a third grade teacher. And as you could see from the video, that the immediate feedback that Nell was able to offer me by watching one guided reading lesson backed up by a second guided reading lesson was tremendous. I was able to implement the feedback and the changes that she had suggested to my teacher language, and it made a big impact on the student. With less guidance from me, the student could do more talking and really could demonstrate his understanding. I was able to immediately implement the changes in my teacher language, and it made a big difference. The professional development and coaching work that we are doing at Lynnwood applies directly to what happens in our classroom with our students. Teachers are immediately able to try out lessons and refine their instruction. Through reflection and feedback offered by the coaches, we make shifts in our teaching practices. The habit of mind that we have developed from the coaching model affects all areas of our curriculum. Here to show how our math instruction has been lifted is Todd Mell, our math specialist.
The reading people have lots of reading and writing materials around here, so let me get my math up here. Thank you. I was also serving as the tech person here, so give me a moment. I think Okay, I'm ready. Well, I certainly am not going to repeat everything that you've heard thus far, but I would like to briefly highlight how our model and beliefs apply to mathematics. First, our fundamental belief is that classroom teachers have the most impact on student learning. Excuse me one second. This includes, and I apologize, the technology, and I think my notes got mixed here, but I'm back. On the spot. So we've researched other models and approaches for math instruction, such as grouping students according to their ability level. However, through our practice and research, we keep coming back and finding that it's the good Tier 1 solid classroom instruction in differentiating that has the most impact on student achievement, and which actually helps to prevent the need for academic intervention services. So coaching in math is what helps us to implement and to maintain that high quality instruction. This is accomplished by modeling best practice in math instruction in the classroom, and by providing teachers with the high quality resources and tools needed to be able to differentiate for all learners. And data. We regularly review and respond to data. We analyze both our state assessment scores and our local assessments, and we always respond to what we learn. An example of this is a few years ago, it was at a curriculum meeting. Our entire staff was there, K through 5, and we were digging into state assessment scores, and we noticed some areas, some opportunities for growth within the measurement and data domain. We were actually kind of surprised by this because this is the domain that includes counting money, telling time, areas where we thought our students would actually exceed. However, there was some room for growth. So we dug in, we learned more about the progression of this curriculum, K through 5, and we discovered ways to better teach these skills with more intensity and frequency. About 2 years later, we were very pleased to find the proficiency level increased dramatically within this domain. So we were very proud of this work, this useful work and time well spent around data. And really for me, this comes back to relationships and trust. This is the key to our success. We value and respect one another. Therefore, we learn from one another. And I actually, I was laughing on the way here and talking about this presentation because preparing for it, I was actually late for a meeting with my principal, Alicia. So I was on my way down to discuss a slide or two, and I was stopped in the hallway by a teacher who wanted some information, some ideas around implementing a number line in a multiplication unit. A very good, important discussion. A couple steps more down the hallway, I was stopped again by another teacher who showed some puzzling work from a student around addition and subtraction. We had another great, important conversation. Literally 4 more steps down the hallway, I was stopped one more time by another teacher who wanted to talk about multi-step word problems and planning a lesson, co-teaching a lesson around this topic. Another important discussion. Needless to say, I was late for the meeting with Alicia, but I think she understood. Yep, she's giving me a thumbs up. I'm okay. I'm coming back tomorrow. And my point being with this, though, is that this is the culture of Lynnwood. These frequent, informal conversations and this comfort level in discussing instruction is commonplace. I'd like to quickly give you an idea of what collaboration in math looks like on a day-to-day basis. I'm going to call up one of our fabulous new 3rd grade teachers, Marissa Moeller, who's going to help me out here in a moment. Marissa was actually approaching one of those lessons on multi-step word problems in 3rd grade. Her and I had a really great discussion around the needs of her students and what instructional approaches might be best for this class. We came up with a placemat activity that challenged the students to work collaboratively, to critique each other's ideas and strategies, and then they had to present those. It was a really clever, impactful lesson that we worked collaboratively on. but I'm going to let Marissa tell you a little bit more about that. Marissa.
So as Todd mentioned before, the lesson was really great because it got the students sharing different strategies and different ways to approach this word problem. And they were really able to collaborate on their thinking. And afterwards, they actually analyzed and critiqued the different strategies to see what was the best way to solve it. So this is something that wasn't a one-time thing just because Todd pushed into the room. This is something that we're continuing to do as we solve word problems in the future. So as a new teacher, it's definitely been really helpful having a math specialist in the building because I know that I can reach out to Todd if I need materials or if I need resources or even just best practices for instructing the students. And it's not just for me, also for the students. When he comes into the room, they're so excited because it's a new face and they know that they're going to be learning something new and exciting from him. And like Nell had mentioned before, as a new teacher, you might think it would be a little nerve-wracking having someone who's always watching you teach and sort of over your shoulder. But the culture of the building really is one where there's so much respect and trust that I know it's okay for me to make a mistake. And that's sort of the point because this is a learning process together. So if I do make a mistake, we can just laugh it off and continue to learn and grow.
And we certainly do a lot of laughing. So this kind of work is definitely easier said than done. The truth of the matter is that it can get really messy. But to talk about the messiness, I'm going to turn things back over to Alicia. That's what we do.
They always give me the messy stuff. So I'm going to talk about the messy. So another part of this story that you need to hear is that authentic change can be messy. We fell down a lot. We got things wrong along the way. This data wall right here is an example of how when we started to talk about student data, it challenged us as we strove to understand what it meant once we collected it. We even managed to get back on the list after we had gotten off. But we stayed the course. That started with buy-in from everyone because we believed that we could make the changes that needed to be made for our students, all of them. So we took action and we reflected along the way. At times, the reflections were celebrations, and other times, they were painful to do. But the reflection on our work taught us it was okay to be vulnerable and to make mistakes, because that's where authentic learning happens. I became fond of referring to this as productive disturbance, and I used it in my monthly meetings with Dr. Wiles a lot. I'm not sure she was as fond of that term as I was. So you've heard the story of how we worked to get the escalator moving, and the growth we have seen because of the opportunities provided to our teachers along the way with their willingness to take on the work. This data shows that we nearly doubled our proficiency in reading and math. As part of our data work, we looked at the impact of the opt-out rates and concluded that refusals had little impact on our overall data. This was consistent with state and district data as well. If anything, we believe our results would have been higher if we had less refusals. But our conclusion is there is wisdom in investing in the expertise of teachers as part of a comprehensive school plan. So how will we stay the course? We can't predict what future obstacles we may face. It is possible that our scores will fluctuate up and down. There will be new factors such as computer-based testing that may impact our work. But what we can predict with 100% certainty is how we will respond to the challenges in the future. We will nurture our culture. We will start with buy-in from our staff and belief. We will take action and we will reflect along the way. Now that we have shared with you our story and you have seen the evidence from our school, we want to share with you the research that validates our work. In June of 2017, an independent analysis of peer-reviewed studies confirmed our approach and specified that effective professional development must include these 7 elements in order to ensure positive outcomes for school. I am proud to say that Lynnwood has all of these. We can no longer say that we are lifelong learners without having systems in place for high-quality professional development. Coaching is a necessary part of that system, but it is not sufficient. Coaching is one part of a comprehensive school-wide plan. We need to be critical consumers of educational research, and we must make time for this rigorous and time-consuming task. We must hold ourselves to high standards when using terms such as research-based, because much of the easy-to-acquire research is published by writers of programs that they are selling. Teachers need more than one-day drive-through-like workshops that offer little to no follow-up. This work needs buy-in from teachers who are able to hear and respond to the coach's feedback. We need leadership that understands it is okay to not be perfect and to model being vulnerable. And most of all, we have to get comfortable with admitting when we don't know how to get off the escalator. We need to be tentative in our understanding of how students learn and be courageous enough to confront the brutal facts. It is hard to acknowledge that perhaps you don't know what you don't know. However, authentic change can only happen when you learn how much you don't know and you choose to begin the journey towards understanding.
As a special education teacher, instructional coaching has supported my ability to plan for and implement differentiated instruction within small and large group settings.
Literacy Collaborative Coaching continues to expand the toolbox of options I can draw upon to make instruction that much more responsive to the specific needs of diverse individuals and groups of students.
As a brand new teacher, I was trying to find ways to meet the needs of my more proficient math students. Working with our math specialist, I was able to change the structure of my math instruction to challenge these students within small group settings. These students now have the opportunity to be challenged with more complex word problems and equations.
With over 27 years of experience, I felt comfortable and confident with my teaching. However, the reality was, I didn't know what I didn't know. From my involvement with instructional coaching, I have completely revised my thinking on instruction across the curriculum. I've shifted from teaching the content to teaching the reader, the writer, the mathematician, and the scientist.
And so in closing, I would like to end with one of my favorite quotes. In times of change, it is the learners that shall inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. Thank you. Has any questions? There's a lot of smart Lynnwood people who can answer.
Sure. Thank you very much for that presentation. Do we have any questions? Seema?
I just had a question, I guess, on like how it looks. So you have the literacy coaches and the math coaches, and so do all K through 5 teachers work with them, or just interested teachers? I just was curious like how that works, and when they meet, that kind of thing.
There's usually a line for their service, I'll tell you.
So as far as literacy coaching goes, I work with, well, within professional development, I'm not sure if you heard the list of, all the teachers that teach literacy are involved in our professional development sessions. So everyone from the classroom teachers to the reading teachers to special ed, ENL, speech and language, and our librarian. And then within the coaching, it's our classroom teachers, our reading teachers, sometimes special ed, a real focus on classroom teachers for sure, because again, with the whole idea of it, if we can, at the tier 1 level, get to the kids, then, we'll
we'll be lifting, helping them all along the way.
So everyone, teachers receives professional development, and then based on kind of how long you've been with us is how long you have professional development. So teachers that have been from the beginning have significantly less hours of professional development and coaching, whereas when we have new teachers coming in or even new to our building, they get what we would call like our initial year of training. So everybody has gone through this kind of cycle. It just depends where you are in your learning and how much you get for like this particular school year.
And it's kind of like Todd said, I mean, now we too will have teachers come and say, can you come and watch me teach this lesson, or I'm starting to do this, a unit of study in nonfiction. Can you help me think about, what to teach, or look at maybe the benchmark assessment that I did with my students and help me understand, what they need, what support they need. So it's a variety of things. And then just one other thing I want to mention is, we're really starting into year 6 too over the last few years. During our professional development session, it's not just Katie and I all the time up there running the sessions. Last year, Joanne Romano did a session with me on our writing units, and we looked at student reflection and goal setting and writing, and Joanne shared the work she was doing. So it really is collaborative. They say it's experts, but we have a whole variety of experts in our building. And then last year, Shauna Otsu, our speech and language teacher, came in and she did a session with us and really educated us all on speech and language development. And I've talked to so many teachers that have gone back and said how they refer back to her presentation with us and her professional development in their teaching now.
Thank you.
Teresa?
I'm just blown away because I'm a parent of Lynnwood, as you guys all know, and love Lynnwood. I think you guys have just done a tremendous job with my kids. I still have one there. Thank you, Mr. Freeman. But one question I do have is with the ELA proficiency and the math proficiency comparisons, and I don't know if it's not really technically a Lynnwood question, but overall in the school district, I don't want to say how accurate these numbers are, but how good are these numbers when there's so many kids in the district that didn't take the tests? So how do you know where the deficiency or proficiency is when you don't have all the kids taking that test?
So I see Mike Bastian back there because he helped us actually look at that question. And as we mentioned, when we actually looked at it, we found that there was basically a net zero gain in the refusals and how it affected our overall data. It seemed to be in line, and I'll let Mike jump in if I have this wrong, with what we saw across the state and we saw across the district in terms of refusals. Did I get that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I saw him giving me side eye, so when I got the side eye, I thought.
Oh, I got a new jacket. I just want to
And welcome to Lynnwood.
No, but when the opt-outs first started happening, we looked at, we compared scores from, before the opt-out period to after the opt-out period, saw which kids had actually, the kids who had opted out, if they negatively or positively impacted our scores, and it was right around like 49-50%. Actually, the state's been tracking this information too, and recently I've shipped on to our DOT and principals. They've done that same sort of analysis across the state, and it's right around that same level. So you have both the high performers and the low performers opting out. So for us,
you're looking
it's
at
kind
their
of been,
grades. You're looking
since
at
we're
how
at 20%,
they're performing.
it's where we are. But I think with CBT coming along and those APPR growth scores being kind of set aside, I'm hoping that the opt-in will kind of come back to fruition.
Okay, thank you.
We also use our own student assessment data, how students do on unit tests, curriculum-based assessments as well, to look at how our students are doing.
Okay.
Kathy?
I was just wondering, I had heard that there was some changes to tests year to year. I know there are always these changes. I thought there might have been some fairly significant changes. How does that impact your data if you're not comparing identical tests?
Well, we're comparing identical groups, but you're right, as the tests got more rigorous, that was one of the obstacles we had to overcome. So one of the things that we decided to respond to was to teach the reader and the writer through coaching. But when we compared the groups, we compared groups against students like us to measure how we did on each year as we went along. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, I guess you would have to, because
yes,
if they keep changing the test,
right,
they keep moving the bar.
Yeah, that's why we kind of had to show the comparison in comparison to everyone else, because we all took the same test.
Okay.
Judy? Yes?
Well, I just want to say, as someone who has been in the class at Lynnwood, but who continues in there, you can see the difference that, I'm only there at math time, but the difference that Todd specifically makes with the kids, but also the kids learning. Everybody feels comfortable with the learning, and the results are astounding, and I think it shows that this has made a huge difference, and I'm so pleased we were able to do it and look forward to continuing the board supporting that kind of initiative, because what a difference. It's very exciting to see.
Thank you.
Gloria?
I think it speaks volumes when a veteran teacher, Joanne, of 27 years, is energized to that extent. That speaks volumes to me, that this has done that for the community. I can hear it in the presentations, and your whole community should be extremely proud of what you've done. My question regards the coaches now. How do you continuously support them in their training? Like, what will keep them motivated and learning? And I mean, do they go back for retraining? Are they connected to a network of people?
Yeah, that's a huge part of this work. I'll let them jump in, but being connected to a university is important, and they go back every year. They participate in webinars. They have their own network of coaches who they support. We have liaisons from the university come to us to help us problem solve. We reach out to them as well. That's a huge part of this, because education, like medicine, it changes. We get better. Many times Katie and Nell will go to Leslie, and Irene Fountas will say, change that, I don't think that anymore. Research doesn't support that anymore, change that. And so it's really important that for us to sharpen the saw, if you will, we make that commitment to be connected to the university, that they're connected to their own professional development, because we have to respond to the students that we have in front of us. And sometimes what we're doing now, it may not work on that same student next week. And so we need that connection. We need to be connected with that good, solid research. And so I think they spent a lot of time reading and talking about their craft. They're very committed to it as well. Did I get that? Okay.
Barbara?
One of the questions that a few of our people asked when we were having the interviews for the new board member, as Christine said, they were fabulous people that stepped forward, some of whom are here tonight. But one of them, and I can't remember exactly which one, asked the question, and I suspect, although they didn't name the school, they were saying, well, why don't we have the same programs in all the schools? They may have been linked up to your great program and are wondering why we don't have it in Westmere and all the other places. So could you put a dollar figure on what it costs to have these great coaches, and then what it would cost to do it successfully in the other schools?
It's priceless. So I can, right? How's that for an answer? I think it's important to understand that Literacy Collaborative and the math coaching is not really a program, but it's part of a comprehensive plan that we as a school community put together as we looked at the needs of our students, we looked at our own needs, and we did the research to say, if we could solve one thing, what would have the biggest impact on student achievement? So I think, I can't answer the question about the other buildings. I think we know from research that the 7 aspects of professional development that we shared are what need to be in place to ensure that we're going to have positive outcomes for our students. But I think instructional coaching is one part of a school's culture and climate, and it's part of a plan. It needs to look at data. It needs a community who's willing to take risks and buy-in and reflection along the way. It's all part of it. So We're happy to talk to any other schools who want to know about what we do. You're all invited to come. You're invited, I'm sure Katie and Nell don't mind you coming to professional development or looking behind the glass. But it's just the culture. It's, as Todd said, people walking down the hall, and this is just how we do business. I also want to say, instructional coaching is not a quick fix. It is not a magic bullet. It's a slow process. It happens over time. Many times I would get frustrated and Marie would say, 5 years, Alicia, 5 years. And sometimes it would be hard to be patient. What you see tonight and what you hear is 7 years of work, hard work, where my knees bled, their knees bled, the people who aren't here who came before them worked really hard and were dedicated. And that's how we got here. So we're happy to show what we do with the coaching. We're happy to have people come and learn about it, but I do want to make sure that we make it clear that instructional coaching is one part of a comprehensive plan. It cannot exist on its own. If we have people, it's not about an expert telling everybody else what to do, as you saw here tonight.
I have a question.
Sure, Alan?
Very good presentation. I also liked your last comments about the fact that it's a process that takes a long time. In response to the cost thing, I think cost sometimes can be oversold. It sounds like you have a quality product that you're putting out, and I guess my question would be to the district, if this product is at the highest level of quality that it is, what are we doing to implement it throughout the whole district so that we're doing coaching and we get these kind of scores for all of our kids? Because at the end of the day, it's the kids that really need to be the product that we're putting out into the world with the best possible education and outcome that they can have. So that would be my question to the district. What are we going to do to expand on this to make sure that all of our learners have this access?
Well, as Mrs. Rizzo just said, it's not a matter of just hiring coaches. And we have begun conversations with the other buildings to talk about what might this look like. Are there ways we can expand this approach, which is really more about a focus on instruction and on professional development than it is about hiring FTEs or purchasing a program or texts or any of those items that turn up, on a list of purchases. This is really about a willingness to be vulnerable and say, I don't know everything there is to know about teaching, you fill in the blank, reading or mathematics. And to get to that point, there's a lot of conversations that have to happen. So we could spend a lot of money on FTEs and not see what we saw on those slides without kind of the grassroots conversation that resulted in that. I mean, this is 7 years in the making, and the first 2 were not pretty. We weren't in this room, we weren't here with a PowerPoint in years 1 and 2. So I think important conversations are beginning. I think we're showing this data tonight because I think it's important to know what's possible, but it's not, okay, let's do this, how much will it cost? It's, are people willing to invest their time, their effort, their confidence and their professionalism to say, okay, I think there are some things that I want to work on and I'm okay with that. So it's not a quick answer. And I think Alicia said it very well, but it is a conversation that we're having with our elementary principals, and everybody has put their toe in the water a little bit. Beth Beanie brought a team to Leslie University last spring, and I know Mr. Brabant said the coaching word to me earlier this week, and so there are conversations, but again, what I don't want the outcome of tonight's meeting to be is, okay, let's put 10 coaches in the 18-19 budget. It will not be money well spent. It's more about this process of developing our leaders. And I'll just comment on that. I do want to recognize Alicia is a leader of that building, but every single person sitting in that group right now, because you're all leaders too. I'm beyond proud of you.
Thank you
any
very
other,
much for
any
this
other
opportunity.
questions?
Oh, thank you.
Sure, yeah, come on up to the microphone.
I know everybody wants to go home. I just want to, I'm really impressed. I am like my two kids in the school district. I always try to come and see what's going on. So I just want to correct one word. We were using a lot of cost. We were asking her like, what is the cost? But I think we should use the word investment. I think whatever money we spent, I'm sure like we'll get to the numbers later. So it's well spent. My only suggestion to the board is that, like you told, it's not required to re-implement everywhere. Like we can't just get 20, 30 people. But we learned a lot. I think if we can, instead of reinventing the wheel, we can just use this learning with other schools. I'm sure it's not just for elementary school. Same learning can be utilized for middle school, high school also. So I think I want the board and even the superintendent to have a plan how whatever we invested, how we can use it to other schools without spending like a lot of money on each school. So that's my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Button up.
Wow, that wasn't up. Awesome. Give them a second to shuffle it out, or? Okay. The next item on the agenda this evening is a budget development presentation, and for that, I will turn it over to Neil.
Need a moment to get set up here.
Yep.
It's in here. Good evening. This is the first of a series of presentations on topics of importance in the development of the 2018-19 budget. The topic this evening is the Cobblestone School, a quaint little one-room schoolhouse located right here in Guilderland Center. And we'll talk a little bit about how it became attached to the Guilderland Central School District. I'd like to start with some history. Not everybody knows the background of the Cobblestone School. Back in 1840, so quite some time ago, and this was around the infancy of public education. Up to this time, there really hadn't been a movement for public education. It was mostly private. So this is at that time when public schools first started to be developed. Property was conveyed by Stephen Van Rensselaer, who was a large landowner in this area, for the purpose of constructing a schoolhouse. And the deed that was developed at that time for the property contained a right of reverter clause, basically stating that if that land was not used for the site of a schoolhouse, the property would go back to Mr. Van Rensselaer or his heirs. So it was an unusual clause. We don't really see that too much today, but it was probably a lot more common back then. So 20 years later, the Cobblestone School was actually constructed. It went for a period of 81 years. It served students during that time period, and then it closed. And my understanding from some of the literature is those students went to Voorheesville. And then in 1982, Cobblestone School was placed on the National Register of Historic Places. So in between 1941, or around that time, 1953, the Guilderland Central School District was centralized. So there was a little period of time in between, but because that schoolhouse was located within the boundaries of what became the Guilderland Central School District, that's how it became attached to our school. So recently, we've had some repairs done on the building. It's a very old building. 2003, there was a cedar shake roof replacement and the rebuilding of a portion of the brick chimney above the roof line. And in 2017, over the summer, the board had authorized $35,000 to make some improvements in the building, which included shoring up a corner of the foundation, replacement of some rotted floor joists and wood flooring, and the replacement of some rotted sections of roof soffit and fascia boards. And we have some pictures. This is a little hard to see with the sun shining in, but that's the new floor of the Cobblestone Schoolhouse. And to visualize what it looked like earlier, if you walk through the front door, and that's the perspective that we're seeing from the front to the back, you had to be very careful because you could see the dirt underneath. The floorboards had caved in. The joists that held up the floorboards had rotted, so when you walked in, you had to be very careful not to step in this hole. So that floor was completely replaced, finished with new wood that was appropriate for that period of time. clear wood grain, and it looks absolutely fabulous. And then this is some of the fascia and soffit work up near the top of the roof line where that's painted white. Some of those, there was rotted sections up there, so they were all, the rotted sections were taken out and replaced, and everything was repainted. So it looks very nice if you get a chance to drive by it. However, that's not the extent of the work that was identified for the building. We do still have some additional needed repairs, and we did get some cost estimates from the contractor that did the work over the summer. The roof does need to be replaced, or will need to be replaced in the near future. That's a cost of $23,400. There's still some more shoring of the foundation that needs to occur. We did the back corner. It's really on that east side. We need to do more of that. $8,250 is the estimate for that. There's a large overhanging oak tree that's impacting the roof somewhat. We want to get that trimmed back. We have to bring a crane in, so it's $5,000 to have somebody come in and do that. That's our estimate. And then depending on how the building might be used, if we wanted to do any interior or have any interior use, we would probably need to replace some water damaged walls and ceilings. We do know from some prior testing that went on that their lead paint is a concern. It's not included in that cost estimate of $12,400, nor is the cost of replacing the insulation. The contractor couldn't get behind there to see what kind of insulation was in place, so he didn't provide a price for that. So we're looking at approximately $49,000 right now for some of those upcoming costs. I will say the biggest, most urgent issue is the oak tree right now. So we have this property, and the question is, well, what does this whole right of reverter clause actually mean? And what it means is that any heir of Stephen Van Rensselaer from 1840 really is entitled to the property if we stop using it for school purposes, which essentially we have. The only known heir that we are aware of lives in Maine. Our attorney did reach out and talk to him. He was a little surprised to learn that he might own a schoolhouse in Lynnwood Center. Did ask his interest, and are you interested in it? He wasn't really interested in it, but he has a lot of relatives, a lot of other heirs, other states who said don't really know what their interests may or may not be. So we didn't go any further with that, but we do know at least of one Van Rensselaer heir. And then we have two descendants of what's known as the Ogsbury family, and this is another landowner in Gilliland Center at that time back in 1840 that owns some property in what appears to be adjacent to where the schoolhouse is, the property adjacent to that. Two individuals, it's an aunt and a niece, have come forward, both claiming that through the Ogsbury family, which they are, that they have some claim to the property, although we don't have any documentation that establishes proof of that at this point. So in order to find out who actually owns the property, we need to conduct a title search. So we do have a deed, and we have a copy of the deed. What we found out when we looked at it and checking with the county was that the deed was never recorded, or if it was recorded, it's not where it should be. Nobody can find the deed, but we do have a copy of it, so we know it exists. In order to go back and research who might be a legitimate owner of the property through the heirs, we would have to do a full title report, and that would cost between $5,000 and $10,000. It's been since 1840. Mr. Van Rensselaer had 8 children. Those children begat children who begat children. You can see that there's a lot of potential heirs out there now that time has gone on. So we would have to determine who would have a legitimate right to the property given this amount of time. Also, our attorney has said that there may also be another consideration in that any heir may have a diminished ownership interest in the property. Because once we stopped using it as a school, that's when the right of reverter would have kicked in. That would have been the opportunity for a Van Rensselaer heir to come forward and say, you're not using it as school, comes back to us, and I'm interested in owning the property. That didn't happen. It hasn't happened since 1941. So right now, we are the only owner since that time. And that also leads to what she says is a strong legal argument that the district took possession of the project through what's called adverse possession. meaning we've used it, continue to use it these past 76 years. People had a right to come forward and claim their property, but they haven't. So given the length of time that we've had the property, it could legally be determined that we have adverse possession. Doesn't mean legal possession, though. So we still don't have clear legal title to the property, haven't established that there's an heir to the property. So we have some options with regard to ownership and title of the property. So the first that our attorney put forth is to transfer the property without quieting title. So this basically says we can give the property to somebody, county or historical society, and basically allow them to use it, but we don't have the legal right to transfer the property. So they're still subject to a claim from a Van Rensselaer heir at some point in the future. And that's where that indemnification clause comes in. So what we would be doing is saying, okay, we'll donate it to a historical society. They can accept the property and own the property, but if an heir came forward and said, hey, I want the property now, they would have a legal claim to it. And basically we're asking whoever takes ownership of the property in the interim to indemnify us against that, any action, any further legal action. But no clear property to the title, or no clear title to the property. The next one is to initiate a quiet title action. And basically, you would use this if you had a party that you wanted to transfer the property to. So this would establish clear legal title. It would involve a search for heirs. It would also involve people coming forward and stating that they believe they have an ownership interest in the property. And this would go before a judge, and a judge would rule on who has ownership right to the property. So if nobody came forward, or if somebody wasn't able to substantiate their right to the property, the judge could ultimately say the school district now has clear legal title to the property. But again, it's a legal process. It's a lengthy process, as I understand it, and it would cost between $6,000 and $12,000 is the estimate for that to occur. And what I understand too is, in addition to, they would probably make us do a title search, which is another $5,000 to $10,000 as well, searching for heirs. Option 3 is just to keep the property as we've done these past 76 years. The issue there is that we would need to continue to maintain the building as the owner of the building. So really, what we're asking the board to consider as representatives of the community is, what immediate decision do we need to make in regards to the 2018-19 budget? And it's just one of two choices initially, which is either to maintain ownership of the Cobblestone School for the school district to continue to do that, or to look to transfer ownership of the Cobblestone School. Once that decision is made, obviously there's different paths, as we discussed, for each of those, and different costs associated with each of those options. But right now, we don't have a clear direction of whether we wish to maintain the property or transfer the property. And concludes my presentation on that topic.
Thank you, Neil. Are you looking for us to start to discuss this tonight and not render a final?
Correct. Our time limit is really, if we had that information by January, when we talk about budget options, we would like to have this question answered. But I think tonight it's just an opportunity. We're presenting it for the first time for the board to have some discussion and ruminate on it a little bit.
Okay. Just one quick question before. I think that might be contingent on the district's intended use. Does the district intend to meaningfully use this property in the future? Is there any plans for that? Has there been any discussion of that? Or do we continue to maintain it but not use it?
That's what I believe the board would need to discuss.
Well, has anybody in the district expressed an interest in using it, I guess is my question. So we can make one of two choices, but if there's people here that want to use it, or if nobody has any interest, that would inform the decision, at least for me.
That was my question too. Has anyone since the spring showed any interest in using the building?
No.
Okay.
Not usable, right?
It's
I mean, it
a
wasn't
bit of the
usable, right?
chicken or the egg. So we can fix the building to be used, or do we decide it's going to be used and then fix the building? And I mean, that's the cycle that we're in. So if the board can give us some overall direction about whether or not we want to hang on to this property, that gives us, okay, then we know we need to maintain it, and we can also begin to initiate a conversation about what realistically would that building be used for going forward. So it's the chicken or the egg, and we really need the board to reflect the values and the interests of the community as a whole, so we know what our next step is.
Barbara?
I just have a quick question. What community group was responsible for getting it on the Historical Registry in 1982?
I don't know that answer, Barbara.
Is there a way to find out, do you think?
Probably.
I have the documents somewhere. If you, I think that they're on like a website, and I think I have a copy of them somewhere. I think it was the school district that that asked.
You think it was the school district?
I'm pretty sure.
It'd be interesting.
Has there been any discussion with the county or Historical Society?
No, there hasn't
Has been any
to date.
To date. I think that would be interesting to know if there was an entity that was in the business of preserving historical properties, or at least, which is really not our focus. I mean, even though this is a gem to have, but it would be nice if there were an entity whose role was to preserve historic properties, and they knew what they were doing about that, that would be willing to take that on. And then there's always an opportunity for the school to use it then, because it would be public. So I would think that would be something to look for.
That's a good idea. Alan?
Have we looked at option one, like what Gloria's saying, really is to find out if there's anybody out there that's willing to take ownership of the property, and probably more importantly, indemnify us of any future costs associated with it? Have we even asked the question or done any research or pushed any feelers out to do that?
No, we haven't at this time.
I think that's a no-cost option to me, so I don't know why we wouldn't try to do that initially, so we could see if we have a better playing hand to look at. And then I guess my other comment would be, is there any reason why we couldn't put this before the voters when we do the budget in May and ask them like we did with the football lights, and ask them if they want to keep the piece of property, or if they don't. If they don't, then why would us 9 people be the people who would be able to make that decision for the public? To me, this is...
You think we'd have to put a cost with that? I mean, people would...
He's got the cost right up there.
You say you want to keep the school. Yes, we want to keep the school, but we have to look at the cost involved in that. So would that be a proposition, you mean?
Right. I'd say
Cost together.
proposal it like it's a proposition and say, okay, if you want to keep the building, it's going to cost X, or we can go route 2, which is to try to quiet deed it, which costs Y, and let the public decide what they want to do.
I thought that the only thing that went before the voters is if we actually were selling property. Like, isn't that true, that the only thing that we put before the voters is if we actually were proposing to sell it? Or sell, I mean, because when we sell property in the past, we've had to have that as a budget item.
Legal counsel on.
I would say we ought to ask our attorney that question. He would be able to give us the advice that we already have him on retainer for, or pay him for.
I'd say like Gloria too, to maybe look toward option 1. I mean, I think in theory it sounds great, but this Cobblestone Schoolhouse has been out there for months now, and no one's really talked about using it. And to me, it kind of sounds like a money pit. Like, we already spent money, and it's cost more money now to actually use it. And it's an old building, and it's not being used, so we're just going to keep paying to maintain it. And I don't see any goals or plans, so I know we kind of have to make a decision soon. But this happened in May, right, to approve getting like the floor fixed and whatever else was fixed.
I think a lot. I teach 4th grade at Altamont Elementary, and we do a Colonial Day every year where we basically. Were you guys talking about this?
Yeah, we were just discussing.
I mean, obviously, I don't know if that warrants like spending all this money for like 1 day a year per school, but we like dress up in colonial outfits, and we, literally do the whole day as if it was a Colonial Day. That would be like amazing to do it there, right?
Just get on the bus and go.
Yeah. Well, I think my kids walk to school that day. I don't think I can walk all the way here, but, I would say, I don't know, just one idea.
But
If people knew it was open to be used.
Right.
I
but
guess is what I'm saying. Maybe
I guess
people
what
would
I'm
use it.
wondering is, do we have to do it, or could an historical society take it
Yeah.
on, preserve it, and then we would use it?
Yeah, I felt like people were
Because-
deciding, do we even use it? Do we even want to look into it if it's not being used? But if we want to know if it would be used, I think if you let teachers know this is something that could be used, whether it's for a colonial day, whether it's for somebody studying architecture of the 1800s, whatever. And if teachers knew it was something that could be used, I think it would possibly be used. So.
Except I'm not sure if it can be
Can't use
used in the
now.
condition it's in, like,
Right.
it-
Oh, it can't.
the picture is beautiful.
Somebody has to
But there are
preserve it.
still liabilities
We
involved
had
there.
used it with
Yeah.
7th graders, because we brought kids there. Oh, yeah, but that was back when you could do that.
Right.
Now it's so in
In bad shape.
disrepair.
But that was my 2 cents, if you're trying to figure out if we'll use it if it's fixed up. I know, we would, and I'm sure, I worked at Westmere, I'm sure they would love to use it.
Yeah, I'm sure like any
Yeah.
teacher would look around for what resources are available if
Right.
somebody had put this building together, that it could be used,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Want to use it.
Right, I guess that's what my initial question was, if it were repaired to the point where it
Right,
could be
it's
used,
just
is there
who's gonna be
interest?
responsible for doing the repairs and
Right.
take it on?
And the maintenance all the time.
yeah.
Teresa?
I will just say, I'll echo what Gloria was saying initially as well, is that I'm for option 1 because I have nothing against the building whatsoever. I just don't know if we want to take on that responsibility of what needs to, I always thought that we had adverse possession of it. I mean, it's been in our possession for that long. It's just like to me, it would be like with any other piece of property. If you've been using it for X amount of years, you do take possession of it because no one else the owner hasn't been using it. We've been using it. If you want to say we've been using it, I guess we used it eons ago, but we haven't used it. So I am all for doing some research to find out which or what historical society would take on that. And there's no reason why, if a historical society had it, why our students couldn't have a field trip to it during, I greatly appreciate Colonial Day. I think that's a great aspect of our heritage. So,
I think this Historical Society used to use that school. I mean, at least they had left all their records. They had like giant file cabinets full of Historical Society records that they had left there. So at some point, they had used the building. I mean, I guess obviously they didn't own the building, but they were using it. And as you know, it was used for people visited the schoolhouse, and it's pretty cool to have the original. I mean, how many districts can say they have their original school dating back to the beginning of public education in their school district? I mean, it's a pretty interesting thing, I think.
Are there any other comments or questions? Okay.
Can we do anything initially before, I know you want a decision by January now. Is there anything we could do in the meantime in terms of contacting the county or historical societies to see if there's any interest in talking?
Certainly can do that.
Thank you, Neil. Okay, the next item on the agenda are the consent items, which consist of the minutes of the October 24th meeting, November 8th meeting, the CPSE and CSE recommendations, personnel action items, there's a textbook, and also the financials. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Kathy, second Gloria. Are there any questions or comments on these items? Alan?
I'll need to abstain from them because I wasn't present for any of them.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
Some of us need to abstain from the November 8th, too, because we weren't present. I think 3 of us.
I was thinking about that too, but since we watched it,
watched it.
yeah.
how does that work?
But if you want to abstain, that's okay, we can note that in the
Yeah,
minutes.
I just assume abstain.
Okay.
I'll abstain.
Okay. Linda, so we have Teresa, Tim, and myself abstaining from the November 8th, and Alan from the November 8th meeting minutes, and Alan from the October 24th meeting minutes. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I think there's a correction. I was present, I believe, at that meeting
At the 8th?
on the.
Yes, you were.
Has been listed as absent.
Alan is abstaining from,
Because I wasn't here for any of that, nor have I had time to read any of it, so.
okay. It says for November 8th, Barbara present at 6:16. It says AM, but it's PM. But it does say that you were there.
I was just looking at the box. Adopted, unanimous mover, so-and-so, seconder.
I'll look at the
Ayes and
attendance.
Oh, because you weren't there for
For that
the
part.
point where SEMA was.
Weren't there at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Just go
Okay.
to the your meeting.
Yep,
You came in right after that.
okay.
Okay.
But you do need to change it to PM, not AM.
Okay.
Would have been a long day if you were there at AM.
Next, we move on to information items, curriculum and instruction. Marie?
Good evening, everyone. I'm actually speaking on behalf of Damien and his curriculum report, and I have the sad news of the evening. Last weekend, our beloved Miss Siggy left us for nicer pastures, I guess. So we just wanted to do a little tribute to Miss Siggy, who was such an important part of our school community for so many years. So I'm going to share what Damien wrote. It gives a little bit of a background, and then we have a couple of photos. But he wrote, "It is with a heavy heart that I share with the board and the community that a true pioneer and beloved friend, Miss Lily Sigmund, a.k.a. Miss Siggy, has passed. Miss Siggy was a golden doodle who was a trained social service support dog, and under the guidance and care of our wonderful Catherine Machete, who is doing okay over there, I hope. Miss Siggy pioneered a district-wide social service dog program here in Guilderland. She began her service in 2004-2005, working with literally thousands of students until her retirement in 2016. Miss Siggy had received extensive training to be an effective part of the Guilderland School District staff. She even had her own mailbox. She held a Canine Good Citizen degree from the American Kennel Association and was certified by Therapy Dog International. Miss Siggy is already sorely missed, but her legacy will in fact live on as the district has been able, with Catherine's help and her whole team, to expand its social service dog program to 5 trained dogs. So we miss Miss Siggy, but she has left a good legacy. So let me, other images. There she is with Shauna Maynard, school psychologist at Pine Bush. Rest in peace, Miss Siggy. So I'm going to finish Damien's report right here so I can... good news from the music department. This year, 19 Guilderland High School students were selected to perform in the Area All-State Musical Festival. That was on November 17th and 18th at Saratoga Springs High School. I'm going to pause for one moment. Yeah. Good night, everybody. Great job. So we had 19 Guilderland High School students who participated in our Area All-State Musical Festival on September 17th and 18th at Saratoga Springs High School. These outstanding ensembles consist of students chosen from a 9-county area, including Albany, Fulton, Hamilton, Montgomery, Rensselaer, Saratoga, Schenectady, Warren, and Washington counties. Competitive selection to these groups is based upon the score received by the students during the previous spring at the NYSSMA Solo Evaluation Festival. Playing in the concert band under the direction of Mr. Robin Linneberry from Maine Enwell High School will be Tracy Way flute, Kenny Yamashita clarinet, Matthew Crichton alto saxophone, Aiden Fusco and Alex Jambonathan trumpets, Glenn Trenchel horn, Vivian Redmond trombone, Hugh Smith tuba, and Thomas Jambunathan percussion. And there's more. Singing in the chorus under the direction of Dr. Timothy Newton from SUNY Oneonta will be Sadie Bucher, Meg Fitzpatrick, Colin Ingraham, Catherine Muller, Samantha Stern, Michelle Prunier, Andre Valverde, and Muriel Zhao. And then chosen by audition to play in the jazz ensemble under the direction of Mr. Alan Ferber, our trombonist Aidan Doyle, and Catherine Giordano. The concert will be held on Saturday, November 18th, beginning at 2 p.m. in the Saratoga High School Auditorium. This outstanding performance is open to the public. Tickets are $8 for adults, $3 for students, and $5 for senior citizens. And we just want to congratulate all of our talented young musicians, their families, and their music teachers, Mrs. Kathleen Ellinger, Mrs. Claudine Golub, Mr. Russo, and Mrs. Regine Teeter. So our congratulations to everybody.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Marie? Okay, next we move to school business. Neil?
Thank you, Christine. One item this evening, it's on water testing for lead. On October 24th, 2017, the district received the results from the most recent water lead testing. The sampling reflects the results of water outlets where remediation efforts were undertaken, such as the replacement of faucets or the installation of water filters. At the elementary schools, all of the results came back below the action level of 15 parts per billion. At the middle school, 3 outlets still exceed the action level, with another 6 remaining at the high school. The district will be working with our consultant on the next level of remediation for these outlets. Until such time as the test results show these outlets are below the action level, they will remain out of service. And you can see I've provided the results of the testing across the buildings. So we had 40 samples that were taken, 31 were below the action level, and a total of 9 remain above the action level.
Are there questions for Neil? Seema?
I was just curious, Neil, if there's an update, like how much it's cost so far to test, and did the state say anything yet? I don't remember about how much they're going to reimburse for testing.
Yes, we've submitted data to the state. We haven't received information back on the amount of aid, but I can update the board with those figures. I don't have them with me tonight.
Thanks.
Teresa?
The faucets that, or the, I forget what term you guys are using, it's not faucets, but the
Water outlets?
The outlets that are above action level, are they water faucets or are they kitchen faucets? Like what, I mean, are they drinking water or is it, which ones are above?
I'm going to ask Cliff to come. He can share a little bit more about the water outlets.
I know this is like a big baffling thing as to why.
It's a mix. I mean, a couple of them at middle school were older steam kettles. And just remind more, we took a stepped approach where we'd go and do new shutoffs, new lines, new faucets. And then if it failed, we're going back and do installing a filter. But we're trying to avoid having to maintain 2,000-foot water filters across the school district. If we can correct it without doing that, that's the first step. The reason you see the elementaries are a step ahead of our middle school and our high school, because we started there first. We targeted our elementary buildings first when we did the original testing. So they've gone through 3 rounds. That's the last round of the ones that we had to go back in to do filters or something. So it is a mix like the high school. There's the tech shop. It's a tech shop sink. It's labeled. We'll go back and remediate it. There was still one in the small cafeteria. Anything that's still tested high is labeled, and then we're moving as we go.
Okay.
We still have to, since this was round 1, and also now we have to go and decide how we're going to address it, like our gang bathrooms, our multi-stall bathrooms. That was kind of, we wanted to concentrate on classrooms, obviously anything that involved the water fountain, our elementary bathroom sinks we focused on, but now we have to go back and actually round 2 of all this is look at our larger bathrooms in the building and decide how we're going to do that, or have some discussions with Albany County Department of Health, SED, if we even have to do that, and can we leave them later, then that'll be a discussion that'll come back to the board of how we want to proceed with round 2.
I know we had discussed last year when this all started about the drinking fountains and doing something with the filters. Do we know who would pay for that, if that's a district cost or a state cost?
We submitted everything for aid to USCD, including the bottle filler.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to. The bottle fillers.
For aid.
Okay. So we just don't know yet what the response is.
And we still have additional bottle fillers we're going to install as well.
Okay.
Actually, change the patents that weren't tested high. The bottle fillers are positive.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, thank you, Neil. Now we move on to superintendent information. Marie?
Okay, thanks. My first item is about our Schools to Watch redesignation at Farnsworth Middle School. On Wednesday, November 8th, 2017, a team from the Schools to Watch recognition program was at Farnsworth Middle School to conduct its site visit as part of the process to redesignate the school as a Schools to Watch. FMS was first designated a Schools to Watch in 2012 and then redesignated in 2015. And Judy and Gloria were able to meet with the two reviewers. And I can share that the review team continues to be very impressed with the work we do at Farnsworth Middle School. And they promise that we will hear in January if FMS will be redesignated as a 2018 Schools to Watch. But they did alert us that we should perhaps plan on a conference in June. So I think that bodes very well for the outcome of our visit. We're very proud of the work that's going on over at Farnsworth.
And they were too. They were very impressed with the kids they talked to and the teachers and everything. It was a very satisfying thing to be able to go to as a board member and see such pride, both from the teachers and from these evaluators.
Yes, it was definitely a high note of the week.
Yeah.
It's very good. My next item, on November 21st, we will be celebrating the School-Related Professionals Day, and this is when we acknowledge the significant contributions of our support staff members to our school district and the students and community that we serve. Our school-related professionals include our bus drivers, clerical staff, teaching assistants, nurses, food service staff, aides and monitors, custodians, and maintenance staff, who all work side by side each day with us as partners in the education of our children. So I will say tonight, but they'll be receiving a letter from me shortly that says, please accept on behalf of the district our heartfelt thanks and appreciation for their hard work, their knowledge, their skill, and their commitment to the children of the Guilderland Central School District. We really appreciate their good work. And next, just a bit of an update on our elementary, the kindergarten section over at Altamont Elementary School. Yesterday, November 13th, was the official first day of our newest kindergarten teacher, Tricia Levins. And today was the first official day of the new class of students in their new classroom. So they, Mrs. Levins had been out to Altamont Elementary to meet with students and set up the classroom and begin to learn more about the school community last week. So we had a nice transition piece built in. And I do have to compliment Mr. Brabant and his team for doing really an outstanding job to work through the process of creating this third section. It's not an easy thing to do once the school year is underway. So Peter, great job, and great job to your team as well.
Thanks to the board for letting us have it.
All right, and I think last but not least, just a brief update on our recent Superintendent's Conference Day. On November 1st, we had our third Superintendent's Conference Day of the 2017-18 school year. At the elementary level, the day was used for parent-teacher conferences. At the middle and high school, teachers worked in teams and or departments on a variety of curriculum-related topics. Many departments at the high school spent time with Karen Bailey, who is an independent consultant from New Hampshire who has expertise in educational best practice, formative and summative assessment, and curriculum implementation. She assisted departments in their ongoing curriculum review efforts. The district also hosted Darren Cosgrove from SUNY Albany to share information about individuals who identify as LGBTQ. He spoke with our teaching assistants, bus drivers and attendants, and some clerical staff. Our transportation staff also participated in a workshop with behavioral specialist Jennifer Zalacki, who addressed behavior management strategies on the school bus. So the activities of the day generated some excellent discussion and provided a great opportunity for our faculty and staff to continue to work on key priorities. It was a very productive and successful day. We had lots of really good feedback. And I think that's it for me.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Marie? Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Next, we move on to board president information, and this evening we have a couple of policies up for a first read. That is 5140 entrance age and 5405 wellness. Barbara, do you want to add anything to this?
We're bringing the entrance age to the entire board because there was sort of a split decision on the policy committee. Good arguments were made on both sides. People said basically parents have the ability to hold their child back. So why shouldn't that parent within limits have the ability to advance the child, particularly if they've been going to school since they were like 2 or 3 years old and things such as that. On the other hand, what we heard from the principals was that they felt leave things the way it is right now. They're very comfortable with what we have. So we talked to Shenandoah that does have this policy in place. They have very few people that go through the rigors of the testing that's done at parent cost, and have about 3 or 4 children a year that actually advance through the entire process. There is no follow-up. One of the questions that we asked was, well, if a child enters early and you've had this in place for a few years, is there any follow-up? Does the child advance? Does the child fall behind? Obviously, we don't know the long-term consequences when that child now is a or say a junior in high school. Everybody else is driving. They're younger than everybody else. So there are a lot of things to consider, but we felt that this should be a board decision. If we're going to do something different, then give you time to think about it. Look at the research that we've had, and we'll make a joint decision. The wellness policy is being updated again every year. They seem to pass new legislation both on the state and the federal level, and we had a good team looking at it. Our nursing staff, our athletic staff, our dietary staff, and NISBA gave us sort of a sample policy that we followed. So that one really isn't that different, except for the nuances that they keep changing. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Are there questions for Barbara?
Christine, can I just jump in and about the entrance age? After the committee met and we put the language, I put the language together, I sent that out to the principals to share, and we have had some feedback from school psychologists and a couple principals, and I will bring that to our committee meeting tomorrow. Okay. So you'll have an additional, some, if we're going to go down this road, here are some things to think about.
Right.
So
and we can also maybe Friday send it to everybody so that not just the 4 of us
Sure.
have a chance to look at it. That'd be great. Any additional information we can get is certainly appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, next we move to action items, and we begin with school business management. Neil?
Thank you, Christine. First item this evening is an award of a private transportation services bid. We solicited 8 vendors, and we only had 1 respondent, Raja Group LLC, and that was to transport a student with disabilities at the rate of $240 a day. There's 4 trips that we're asking for that. Estimated annual cost of $31,200, and this contract would take effect from November 27th to June 22nd.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the transportation services bid? Judy, second Barbara. Are there any questions or comments for Neil? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 9-0.
Next is an agreement for, the federal IDEA flow-through funds. The agreement is for, reading as I'm going along. There's 3 schools that will receive funds: Mountain Lake Academy, Parsons Child and Family Center, and Unity House of Troy. In addition to that, we have an agreement with Nurse Connection Staffing to provide temporary nursing services.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve all of these service agreements together? Teresa, second Seema. Are there any questions or comments for Neil? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 9-0. Thank you, Neil. And now we move on to superintendent action items. Marie?
I have 5 co-curricular clubs that we're seeking board approval, 1 at the high school and 4 at the middle school. We have chess club with advisor Mr. Heidinger for the high school. At the middle school, we have the Frisbee football club with Ms. Ficara, glee club Mrs. Mewhorter, open art studio with Mrs. O'Mahony, and the wellness club with Ms. Hannah. And this is our last month for new clubs. Just November that's why we have a rush.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve all of the clubs together? Barbara, second Teresa. Any questions or comments? Yep.
Are these all non-stipend? I don't remember.
All 9, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. Okay, and now we move on to board committee reports. We will start with audit. Teresa?
We're meeting the 30th.
Okay. Business practices. Gloria? No.
Communications.
Oh, whose business?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm used to it from...
I know.
Business practices. Kathy?
We're meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30.
Just
8:30?
here.
We could just stay. You got a cot?
Yeah.
Is it 8:30 or 8:15?
Oh, is it 8:15? Is it 8:15 or 8:30?
8:15.
8:15, sorry. I would have been 50 minutes late.
I'm going to say 8 o'clock, so I'm on there on time.
Okay. Communications. Gloria?
Okay, communications, thank you. You all received a couple of meetings ago, Section 1 on team communication for the handbook. We asked you to look at it. I got most of them back, but we're still missing 2, so if those people could get them to us as soon as possible so we can get that Section 1 put to bed. Tonight, Linda, thank you for doing that. Got out Section 2 for you on board meetings, so if you could look that through, that will be due on December 19th. Okay, so you have plenty of time to look that over, make any changes, mark it up, and then get it back to us on the 19th. That would be great. We basically worked on finalizing those interview questions, which we don't have to go through all that. We also talked about how to get the community involved in the budget again, how to engage the community in the budget process. We liked what we did last year in terms of the, BOCES helped us create that nice little mapping timeline. So we're going to update that and get that out to the community and use it as a way of talking about where we are in the budget process. And we want to constantly remind people that their voice is important and to get it out, to get their voice heard as soon as possible. We want to continue, and Neil started tonight, the idea of the budget vignettes, the little topics that are done at every meeting, keeping the budget out there and in front of our thinking. Next meeting, we're going to look, which is coming up next month, we'll look at the topics for those vignettes, and we'll kind of make decisions as to which ones, if we want to change any, or things like the one with the schoolhouse was something we didn't have before, but we thought it would be a significant change to the budget. We asked Dr. Wiles, to ask the principals at all the schools to use any opportunity they can through newsletters or any SNN's home, just to remind people that their voice is important in the budget process, to encourage them to either come to a meeting, speak at the public comment, send an email, send a snail mail, whatever, but to get their ideas to us. The board, we want to provide community members and parents to comment on the budget at all board meetings, so that first beginning of the meeting, the end of the meeting, and also at PTA meetings. We're encouraging all the board members, we are all liaisons to different PTA meetings. That's an opportunity also to remind the parents who are there, if the officers who are there, to keep that in the discussion. We'll also use the priorities form that was created last year, which seemed to work very well, so Marie kindly put that out for us
It'll actually go out this Friday because
Oh, this came.
we're going to rewrite the fund balance question a little bit. We
Okay.
were working on that today.
All right, I'll just read. But anyway, you'll get something like this, which reminds us of our district priorities, and then your ideas can go on here, and which priorities they link to, just like we did last year, which really facilitated the conversation well. I mean, so much better than we did before, so that was really helpful. And, yeah, we did discuss revising the fund balance question, so we're clear about what the guidance is that we're giving to Neil.
Yes.
And we shared our remarks regarding the board handbook, section number 1, and we made our changes and things like that, so we did that. Our next meeting is December 7th at 8 o'clock at the middle school.
So Gloria, how do we handle reporting out based on the additional comments that you received tonight, if they are different than the ones that you had already discussed?
From here?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think the communication committee will go through that. If we think that they're going to definitely be changes, then we'll probably type them up and get them out to people, so at least we can look at them before we put them in a final.
Okay, so you'll close the loop with everybody here. Okay.
Yeah, we'll all look at them each time, and we're hoping Tim and now Alan can help us out looking at the handbook as they go through the year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Gloria? Okay, policy committee?
Policy, our meeting tomorrow afternoon, 4 o'clock.
Great. Okay. Next, we move on to public comment number 2. Linda, has anybody signed up? Okay. And now, board issues, ideas, and sharing? Judy?
A couple of things. The CAPSPA, which we haven't heard much about this year, is meeting on November 30th at South Colony, and a gentleman from the Office of Budget, I believe, I'm not sure what office he's in, is going to be there and will discuss ideas, but also take a lot of questions. And so if you're interested, I think the CAPSPA meetings are very informative. I enjoy meeting with the people who are there. South Colony Music Department will be performing, and it is a nice evening. And they have a nice dinner. Yeah. And also, tomorrow is the Focus luncheon for those of us, Service Day. I can only do the luncheon part, and it's a wonderful day. It's one of the things that makes you feel good about being on the board, when you see these kids expressing their feelings and happiness and love for each other, and it's really a terrific day. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have a couple questions. How do I know what committees I'm on?
He was on audit and
Communications.
communications.
If you'd like to.
I can do that, I just didn't know which ones he was on, so.
And liaison for what school? I don't recall off the top of my head, but we can certainly get that to you.
It was liaison for Altamont.
And when, does it say when they usually meet on there?
Not on this one, no.
Okay.
Is Peter still here?
Okay.
He was also the special education PTA on there with Barbara.
Okay. Altamont may be, depending on what day of the week it is, it
Okay,
might be a problem.
maybe I could maybe
Judy's
switch
the alternate, so
Yeah,
maybe you can
we
switch.
can switch if you need to.
Right now she has
See.
Pine Bush.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes I know meet morning, I think they flip.
Yeah, mornings will be hard for me, okay?
Yeah, impossible.
Not retired yet.
Well, maybe we can work it out, Ellen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll be meeting December 7th for communications.
12/7, okay. You said what?
On November 30th for audit.
Okay, Marie has one item for sharing.
I do. I got word from our yearbook staff that the photo for the yearbook for the Board of Education and the district office team will be just prior to the December 5th board meeting.
Oh my gosh, they're early.
No, it's typically when we do it.
I just thought it was February or so.
Yes, so if you can be here a little bit early that night, they'll take our photos probably out in the hallway.
Okay.
When we did executive session?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I'll certainly do reminders, but I wanted to put it on your radar.
Okay, thank you
Next
for
regular
that.
meeting, sure.
Anyone else?
I just had a question.
Sure.
Did we decide anything about the 19th
Sure.
of December, about it being a meeting or a retreat?
Retreat? Yeah.
I
thought we
I
agreed
thought
on
we
last
were
meeting,
big,
but
full
it's on our calendar.
Okay, I just can't remember, sorry.
Yeah.
So it is a retreat, okay.
Yeah, and Mr.
We're on.
Hendricks has already agreed to be there.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Is that same time or earlier start time?
I think we might want to start at 6.
Yeah.
So that we can
But
get
you
out.
said, yeah, we're
We
going to
wouldn't
have a
be
light
going
dinner
too late.
and
We
then
have a light
start,
dinner.
I will
Start at 6:30.
follow up with him and work out the logistics of his timing, but I think if we can start at 6, then it's
The dinner before that?
Yeah.
5:30?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Sounds good.
Wait, say that, so are we doing 5:30 or are we doing?
Well, that would be
She's
food.
gonna let
We'll
us
have food
know.
available at 5:30 if people want to come. You can come right at 6 if it's impossible and then eat
Okay.
while
Okay.
we're starting.
I'll send some
Some
information
people's
around.
schedules might not.
Anyone else? All right. We do not have a need for executive session, so may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Seema, second. Teresa? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very much.